Hello and welcome to Art Classes with Frau Putz. We're going to be looking at three-point perspective today, and we're going to be looking at a simple three-point perspective piece using a hypothetical drawing of a three-point perspective. Let's get started. All right, so starting three-point perspective, we start out with a frame that we're going to put our image in. And for your purposes, you might want to use a frame that's quite filling the paper. For my demo here, I'm just going to make a smaller one because I want to keep my vanishing points on the paper. We're doing a hypothetical three-point today, so we're just going to put some buildings in. And I'll show you how to find the three-point perspective in an actual piece in the next tutorial video. So putting the frame in. Okay, and the first thing you want to do is put in your horizon line. Depending on where your horizon line is, that will also change your perspective in the piece. If you're using a reference image, you want to find the horizon line from the image. You can't just pick wherever you want to put the horizon, but for this piece we will just pick a horizon line. And just like in two-point perspective, on your horizon line come your two horizontal vanishing points. Okay, so all of your horizontal lines will fall into those two vanishing points. And then the one thing that's different, now you have a third vanishing point. So if you're looking down at something, so three-point perspective is either a bird's eye view or a worm's eye view. If you're looking down at something, so you're in a high perspective, your vanishing point will be on the bottom. And if you're looking up at something, where you're sitting on the ground and looking up at something, your vanishing point will be on the top. Okay, so we'll do looking down at something today. So I'm going to put my vanishing point down here. Okay, and let's just start with a few buildings here. So I'm going to start with the tops of them. You can put your whole vanishing line in if you want to. Okay, and then your side will come in here as well. Depends how big you want your rooftop, or how big your rooftop is in the actual picture. Okay, and then your vertical lines are going to come in here, and they'll vanish to this vanishing point down here. So I'm putting in the bottom of the building now. And it always goes from each of the vertices to the vanishing point. Okay, so there's our first building. And say the building ends here, then your bottom of your building is going to come like so. Okay, and so let's make a road right beside the bottom of the building. Because usually in cities we have a road beside the building. We're just going to get these lines, and you can erase all your extra lines in the end. And then the other line will always go to the other vanishing point over here on the right side of the picture. Noticing that beneath your horizon, just like two-point perspective, your lines angle downward, and above the horizon, your lines will angle upwards. Okay, and so we'll get that other line in here quickly. So there's our road coming to be? And just because our vanishing point is here, I'm going to actually make sure the road cuts off over here. And you can either leave these lines on while you go, or you can erase them as you go, your leading lines. You can put the bottom of that building in. Okay, so all of the bottoms of your buildings will vanish into that same vanishing point. So that's our first one there. So if we put another building in here, say there's a higher one now. See, it's slightly cutting off this one. And once again, you can extend your building off of the page to make a really interesting composition. You can either break through that frame, or you can cut it off at the frame. For this piece, I'm going to cut it off at the frame. Okay, and I have a lot of lines going on here, so I'm going to start erasing the ones you're not able to see anymore. And then you'll start to see the buildings coming into place. So the bottom of the building, I want to follow the bottom of the building from the other picture, or from the other building as well here, because I want the road to stay similar where it's placed, and I want the curb side to be equivalent as well. Okay, so now I have the bottom of this building. I'm going to erase the middle lines in here. And you start to see that road and the buildings coming into place. Okay, this is a quite extreme vanishing image because, or this is a quite extreme 3-point perspective piece because the vanishing point is so close. So every building that you draw is going to come out quite quickly from the piece. Let's try the top of that roof of this one now. Oops. I'm going to make this building a little bit wider. Once again, the side of the building will fall into this vanishing point down here. you see your building starting to come together there. If it helps on your eyes, you can continually erase these leading lines so you don't have too many lines in your piece, or you can do it in the end. You can choose, okay? And do them very lightly so that you don't see them in the end, so that you can erase them. Alright, so if these buildings had windows, the windows would go on according to the vanishing points as well. So for example, this building, if it had windows, go on like that. No, this window is incorrect. It's not centered. Let's not center that window. And the easiest way to center the windows is just making a grid going to your vanishing point, and then your windows will vanish correctly too from their vertical lines. And then when you put in their windows, let's get that straight again, sorry. When you put in the windows, you can just grid them out and you can erase the lines in between. It's faster. Making sure that your ruler stays on that vanishing point. When you're doing architectural sketches, you always want to search your line out so that you find it. You just keep your hand very loose and search out that straight line, always looking to where you are going. Not at your pencil itself, but where your line is going to be going in the end. You can choose to do this with a ruler if you want as well. Depends if you want a more natural looking drawing or if you want a perfect blueprint sketch, and if you want a blueprint sketch, then you can use the ruler. Okay, so there's the windows coming in, and then I can start to erase these lines. The windows on the other side of the building will also follow the vanishing point. They're going to follow this one. And then the other side of the window will follow this one. Okay, and then depending when your light's coming from, let's say the light's coming from here, then you'll start to have your shading come in here. We're gonna do this we're either gonna do this at the end with watercolor, acrylic ink, or we're gonna be doing this with chalk and charcoal on brown paper. Okay, same thing here. You'd have your shadows coming in here, and you start to see your building start to come together. All right, so there's a few buildings in our piece. That's the beginning of 3-point perspective. Anything else will also follow, like say if there's like a lamp post, that's also going to follow these vanishing points. So let's put the lamp post in front of this building here. So there's a lamp post and it's coming out like this. Okay, the lines are going to vanish into that bottom vanishing point too. You can round it with your shading. They're going to get increasingly smaller as they go backwards. I think this one needs to even be smaller yet. Okay, so there's your lamppost coming in then. And the biggest one would be closest. Where's that biggest one going to be? Let's put it in front of this building here. Okay, so they start to follow suit here. Alright, the buildings on the other side of the picture, let's make some of those as well. I think I want a wider base for that building. Let's make it a little bit wider here. That side's going to extend more. and putting in the roof. The back edge is going to go to your left vanishing point. That front edge is going to come to your right vanishing point. Let's make this building taller actually. We don't want them the same size. That's not very dynamic. The nice thing is working with pencil, you can always change it before you put in your final lines. Yeah, let's make this one higher. We're going to cover up this building. Frame with this building. Rewind, mistake. Sometimes artists make mistakes and you do connect the lines to the wrong vertices, and that's also okay. Just erase and then start over again. All right, let's do this again. We want to connect this line to this vertices. Connect this line to that vertices. We're actually changing the shape of our building. This will make more sense when your lines are coming together more. I've just changed that curve of my building to make it a little bit more in line with what was going on in the picture. So we'll erase those other lines. And then we have to erase this building here because you're not going to see it anymore. So you see your city starting to come together. Let's darken these lines so you see which ones we're working with now. So we have one here, that's your side of your building. One there. One there. One there. Always going into your vanishing points. you start to see your buildings coming up and extending from the curb there. Okay, let's put in this one on the side yet. And that's going to be our last one for today. And if you want to break the frame with these last buildings, you can also extend them off the frame, and you could have the buildings grow outside the frame. And maybe you want the right buildings to grow outside the frame. Let's just see something's going on here. I want to make sure that this line is correct. Okay, then your vanishing points go into here, into your bottom vanishing point. That's the side of the building, and then there's the other side of the building. I found our problem. So on the other side, because we're looking this way, let's make a big overlapping building behind this one and see what happens. we go. That was the line we were missing. Sometimes it takes a second to wrap your head around the problem as well. There we go. Now there's our cities coming together. Okay, and then our last building will be up here. Through that frame there. I think that's too much for the picture. I'm actually going to cut it off at the frame. I'm not enjoying how it's extending out there. It's getting too close to the vanishing point, so we're going to cut this off at the frame, and I'll put the frame back in. That's just a hypothetical, but how you could break it off at the frame, I'll show you that again in another drawing someday. Okay, let's put our frame back in. I just decided that it gets too extreme as your points get closer to the vanishing point. They do get too extreme, or they get more slanted. And we're just going to put our, I think for the composition of this piece, it's a stronger piece if we put our frame in like this and cut it off. Okay, for your piece, I don't want you to have a strong line for your frame. I want your either color or your charcoal and chalk to extend to the edge of the frame. And so I'm just putting in this frame so you can see it on this piece, how the piece is coming together now. There's lots of eraser lines, but those are going to be covered up with if you're working on white, the ink, or the chalk and chalk wool if you're working on brown paper. So there, it's starting to come together. Erase that horizon line. And that's how you would do a 3-point perspective looking down at a city. So if you were on maybe the 16th floor looking down at your street, that's how your piece would look like. Okay, and then you're filling in all of these windows. The windows would also follow all of the windows would follow the vanishing points as well. Okay, so the bottoms of the windows would follow these ones, and then your sides of the back windows would follow these ones. They follow the same horizontal line as the rooftops do. Sometimes it gets trippy on your eyes. You need to relook at it, step away from it, and like I did here, it's easy to make mistakes where you put in the back lines of buildings. You want to always make sure that you're always, if you're looking at the rooftop of this one, you're also looking at the rooftop of this one. So that's where I got confused here, whereas I put in one extra line here, and then that changes your perspective that you're looking from bottom up instead, and then your vanishing point isn't accurately depicting the building anymore. So it took me a second, and then you step back from it and you look at it again and you're like, oh, there was one extra line there. All right, so hopefully that helps you understand 3-point perspective. We'll go into detail in how you find your reference images on an image, or how you find your vanishing points on a reference image in the next lesson.